And then I just will ask Professor Schubert, are you working with lawyers?
You're muted.
I just want you to tell me yes, you know, if not, no. I know that Dr. Yiden is, so I will just ask him before we go.
You asked me whether I work with lawyers. I need a lawyer because my medical university here made me problems because of my activities.
We know a very good lawyer, Rocco Galati. And,
we know a very good
two lawyers very good in Quebec and Toronto. No expensive. Yeah. No expensive. $300 every hour. 4 hours.
I will connect you. Yeah, thank you.
So yes, I'm able to contribute. I'm able occasionally to contribute. So, for example, Rainer Fulmich, I provided evidence to his case. So, because I'm a free agent, I'm an independent entrepreneur. If I want to express a view and someone is interested in that view, I'm your person.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So,
well, I would start with
I
would start with Rocco first, yes, because
exactly.
You know, Rocco's got a good grasp of the situation. He's filed a case, very complete and long lawsuit in July of 2020, and to my knowledge, so far it's the most comprehensive lawsuit that has been filed that covers all the COVID measures and even the global agenda that is being discussed. Concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. So I would let Rocco first to express himself and maybe comment on some of the speeches that we heard from those three eminent scientists. So Rocco,
well, it was very interesting listening to all three, but I was particularly taken by Professor Schubert's analysis and as well Professor Kulldorff, because one of the biggest concentration of the impact of the constitutional violations and the violations of human rights has been the collateral damage, the ignoring of the non-biological focus on the virus and the damage, the human rights damage, including up to increased suicides, increased domestic violence, increased drug addictions and deaths. In Canada, we know 42% higher deaths from heart attacks during this COVID period because they canceled all surgeries in the hospitals in Canada. So we had a 42% increase in heart attack deaths during the COVID measure. We're talking up to August. It's probably higher by now. So I was very taken aback by Professor Schubert's analysis of the holistic sort of impact in analyzing trying to separate it into a mechanical exercise. And of course, it was also of interest to me because in my statement of claim in July 6th, we pled in that statement of claim the international agenda behind the so-called pandemic. And I called it in March 17th, which is an international agenda by a select group of international billionaire oligarchs who don't listen to the science, who don't listen to the medicine. It's obvious, they just keep plowing. And even when their institutional friends like the World Health Organization is now saying, stop the lockdowns, stop the asymptomatic testing. They're not even listening to the WHO now. They're on full steam ahead on this, what is strictly a political, socioeconomic agenda to establish a new world order. They're not even denying it now. The World Economic Forum, I was interested to see the World Economic Forum commission a report by two McGill University professors, and I'm thinking of giving my McGill degree back. I graduated from McGill, entitled how to make the human body an effective information platform. So they got 7,000 volunteers who've had chips inserted in various parts of their bodies to interface with machines. What's this got to do with the virus? Nothing. And so when you look at the irrationality of all the measures, you can see that one of the agendas behind this panic and fear is very much to dehumanize us as human beings. You know, when I explain to people, what do I do as a constitutional lawyer? That's a very simple answer. What I do is try to protect humanity and human attributes with which we were born, which are what we have been misinformed and misled to think are constitutional rights granted upon us by the state. So the American framers of the Constitution had it right when they said you have inalienable rights. Now, those inalienable rights are simply human attribute. The ability to think, to form a belief, to communicate that belief, to associate with others, to exchange beliefs, to assemble, to petition your government, to socialize are all simply human attributes that the Creator gave us. Even if you believe that the Creator is no more cosmic than your mother. Your mother gave you birth and gave you those human attributes. So if you look at the measures in the program by which they instilled the measures, first you had quarantine, self-isolation, social distancing, masking, don't hug your children, don't visit your grandparents. So little by little, they are stripping away the human attributes which make us human. Our chief public health officer then said a few months ago, don't have sex without a mask. In fact, she recommended that we all masturbate till the end of 2022. I'm not making this up. So every measure they've taken, they're taking away your human attributes. And taking away your human attributes, they're taking away your human rights and constitutional rights. So if you think about it logically, the American and Canadian and European constitutional rights of freedom of thought, conscience, belief, speech, expression, association, they're analyzed separately for legal purposes. However, they are inseparable in this way as human attributes. If you can think, believe, but you can't express, your beliefs and thinking are irrelevant. If you can express your beliefs, but they don't reach a second person, then your expression is meaningless. If you can't associate to exchange, then all the other rights are meaningless. And if you can't petition your government and assemble to protest your government, then freedom of association is irrelevant. And so not only with the measures, but then when you have the massive censorships through the social media, where Nobel Prize winners are taken down for expressing their opinion on their expertise by some 20-year-old, marijuana smoking kid at YouTube or Facebook, then you realize the Fourth Reich problem we are facing, except that it's worse than the Fourth Reich or Mussolini's Italy in World War II. This is global. It's not restricted to two countries. This is global. And the fact that the same edicts are issued in every single country, to me, are not coincidence. When people talk about conspiracy theorists, if you're a conspiracy theorist on this, the people who allege it must be coincidence theorists. Why is every jurisdiction, including Toronto, getting an order now that all children, asymptomatic children, are going to be tested in the new year? This is not coincidental. This is happening in every jurisdiction in the world, practically. And so when we look at that, what we're facing is a real, serious global agenda. And they have the money, they have the police, they have the media, they have everything except one thing they can't have, that history teaches throughout periods like this, from Spartacus to Nostradamus to the Catholic Inquisition. to the world wars, McCarthyism, and all of that. They do not possess, nor can they control, the consent and obedience of people of conscience. They never have, they will not hear, and they shouldn't. And the really huge task is to convince our fellow citizens, especially the ones who are in a position of decision-making positions, that this is not a bona fide pandemic. It is simply not. The science doesn't support it. The medicine doesn't support it. The death rate doesn't support it. Nothing supports it except the fraudulent propaganda of this global machinery that's propagating it. And so what we're doing here at the Constitutional Rights Center is not just suing the government, but we're suing the medical colleges that suppress the expression of the doctors. We have a pending action against the police force. We have pending actions against the face of authority and trustworthiness that traditionally holds in our society. Who do we trust in our society historically? We trust our doctors, our lawyers, our nurses, our police, our teachers. And that's where the problem of propaganda through fear of losing their job is the most powerful, because then they become the capos of this agenda, and they become the people who distribute the propaganda, who we have seen traditionally as our friends and upon whom we rely to teach our children, to make us well, to protect us from criminals.
So Rocco, I would have thank you very much for your very well felt comments. I think that the people on the YouTube, on the social media, and in the audience here felt them also. I would have a question for you, Rocco. How do you see things going into 2021 on a legal basis, on a global basis concerning that pandemic?
That all depends. That question, Dominic, all depends on how many people assert their rights. How many people want to continue to live under house arrest in their own basement? How many people don't want to see their children, their grandchildren, their brothers, their sisters? How many people will stand up and say, enough is enough? Not just in the courts, Dominic, because court cases are not a silver bullet solution for anything. But as Mike Eden said earlier, on the streets, in the legislature, it all depends on how people either stand up or not. Unfortunately, one of the resistance that you see is a human phenomenon that, and Mike said he had quoted this earlier. One of my favorite lines was from Mark Twain, is that it is much easier to fool somebody, and they've been fooling us for a year, than to convince that person that they've been fooled. And that's the task at hand, is trying to convince people what's been presented is not accurate. You know, there may have been good reason early on to be cautious, but after 8 full months from March of this complete systematic abuse, and look at the messaging from the public health officials, the WHO, our national and provincial, like their position on things shift by the week and by the month, like a palm tree swaying in a tornado in Hawaii, right? So in April and May, masks were not recommended. And then it's reversed. Lockdowns were not recommended. They were fully brought in. Now they're not recommending them. You know, this is a technique that's used by detention centers and torture centers everywhere. Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo Bay, where they change the rules by the week to disorient the prisoner so that they get to a certain point where the prisoner says, okay, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they're doing this on a societal scale. This is a psych war that we've never seen on this scale. Because again, if you're intelligent or educated or just have a normal intelligence and you look at the facts, you look at the science, and you look at the medicine, sure, you can have slight disagreement. But when you look at, for instance, lockdowns, they are totally irrational. So a small clothing store, a small shoe store has to close down, but Walmart is selling shoes and clothes in a crowded store, in a crowded mall, and people are getting on crowded buses to get to that crowded store in a crowded mall. And so why are the small businesses being put out of business? Well, the answer is simple.
Mm-hmm.
All the corporate conglomerates have literally doubled their net worth in 8 months. Right? So when you look at, when I say to people, don't try, if you're not equipped to parse the science or parse the medicine or parse the law, just use your common sense, because it's your common sense that's probably gotten you through life. Use your common sense and ask yourself, does it make common sense to socially distance 6 feet when you can sneeze or cough 20 feet? Does it make sense that the small stores who are able to enforce social distancing better than the Walmarts and the Costcos have to close, but the Walmarts and the Costcos are open? Does any of that make sense? Does it make sense that you can go to a supermarket shoulder to shoulder and buy hot and cold food, but you can't sit at a restaurant socially distanced and sit down and eat? Does it make sense you're sitting down and standing face to face on a crowded bus, but you can't sit down and have a beer or have a meal in a restaurant? Just use your common sense and you'll see the load of crap that's being put forth by these propaganda masters. So it all depends. Do we get out of it or not? It depends if people wake up and stand up. They have to stand up. And so we're filing an application soon to ask the court to declare that peaceful civil disobedience is a constitutional right, and suggest that it is a constitutional right not to follow these irrational, insane, fascistic lockdown orders that make no sense.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Rocco. It's always a pleasure to hear you, and I look forward to our next meeting in Toronto very soon. I would have a question for Mr. Eden. Since you're involved in legal cases, what would be the scientific roadmap that you would give to a lawyer to present to a judge in order to convince the judge that there's no more danger that would justify declaring that there's a sanitary emergency?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's not something I could answer in 1 minute, but what I would say, because our own Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, said the best test of the ending of this episode is to look at excess deaths. Mm-hmm. So you have to be a little bit careful, because after 8 months of these restrictions and measures, including, as I described, restricted access to our healthcare system, I'm afraid more people are dying as a consequence of that. In fact, I probably think it's 50-50. There are still residual deaths from the telling off of the virus, but there's an increasing number who are dying from the measures. So it requires subtlety. You have to be very careful and look at the causes of death and look at whether the clinical picture that preceded the death that's called a COVID death, is that consistent with this virus, or is it, if not? Because if not, it's probably one of the side effects of the measures. So not easy. You need a good lawyer, you need good scientists to be advising them, providing really easily comprehensible figures. It can be done with figures and graphs, it can be done.
Thank you for your answer. It's very...
Dominic, can I say for a second that in Canada, we plead the statistics of all-cause morbidity. Denis Rancourt, who wrote the paper on this issue, is one of our plaintiffs in the court case. We have and can prove that in Canada, no more people have purportedly died of the COVID, this is from government statistics, than historically from the annual complications from respiratory disorders from the annual influenza. Okay. So about 81 to 8,300 people a year die in Canada from complications of the influenza. That's how many deaths we've had. We've had 9,000 deaths in the first season, because I don't buy this theory that now we're still in the same COVID flu season. But so that even under distorted characterization of COVID deaths, which is that if you die of anything, even in your last day of palliative care from cancer, and you have if you test a positive, they put you down as a COVID death. Even if I accept that, we had about 9,000 deaths up through the summer this year, and last year we had 8,300 from the influenza. So there is no, and when you look at all causes of death in Canada, they've been flat, basically the same for the last 5 years, from the latest statistics issued by Statistics Canada. Yeah. So there's no evidence whatsoever that this pandemic has even hit a blip. So if we look at COVID death rates as expressed by the official government line and compare that to the population of Canada, COVID has purportedly killed 0.0024 of the population. That's less than 0.25%. I don't know what pandemic manual they're using to suggest that if you lose 0.25%, you've got a pandemic. My grandmother died of the Spanish influenza in 1918, giving birth to my father. And if you compare this pandemic to such pandemics as the Spanish influenza or the Black Plague or all these epidemics and pandemics, it's a joke. I'm not saying that people dying is a joke. I'm saying the propaganda and political agenda that's being pushed is a joke.
I have a question from Galati. Between March and December, do you have one case in Canada that you win, they permit to stop one rule of the government?
No, because I'm the only one in Ontario who's gone to court. And what happened 10 days after we filed our statement of claim and saying that this is not a pandemic and this is not an emergency, it does not meet the terms and definition of the emergency, our government canceled the emergency order. We were then going to go and bring a masking injunction. They changed the rules, and basically in Ontario, you don't have to mask. You say, I'm exempt, and you don't have to tell them why you're exempt, and you don't have to provide. So as we move along, as we target the next step, they changed the law. So in a sense, that's success, but it's on a political level because they don't want to go to court on this, right? So now we're taking a challenge. We're almost completed the prep work. We're challenging masking in the schools, the testing in the new year, and we're challenging and seeking a declaration that the government be ordered to stop using the PCR test as a means of counting cases because it is not a viable or reliable test to determine who's positive.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocco. I think from now on, I think we'll let Mr. Brusa express, or you have any other questions?
I don't have the question. I try to explain the idea that I after listen all analyze about the public health, the relation between between doctor and the person is a personal relation. And after you have another situation, the public health. In the personal relation, the doctor have a personal responsibility. They have to suggest, they have to explain, they have to counsel, and the person has the right to choose, I do, I don't do, I receive this kind of product or no. When you're in public health, the subject became object. I said this morning, I repeat this, because it's a totally different relation. Before, we have a God. God, you go to the paradise or in the inferno, but was la volonté de Dieu, the God, comment dit?
Will.
Will, perfect, thank you very much. But the God now is less important than the government. The government is a new God. But the new God without responsibility. This is the situation that we are in the moment. Because we want to find a peace after COVID-19. This is the title of today. We arrive to have a peace? I don't know, because we don't have any judgment, good judgment for us, for our idea about the pandemic, because I agree what they say, we are in propaganda, it's not a real pandemic, they want to try to live our life with fear all the time, to stop, to not have any possibility to choose, because you are an object. You accepted what the government said. And after, criminal responsibility, the collateral effect about the choice they do is possible. Normally in a relation, when you choose something, you're a lawyer, doctor, you are responsible of the counsel that you give. They choose our life, they decide the lockdown, the mask, the risk of the vaccine, and they are totally free in immunity, total immunity. It's for that I try with the criminal complaint, with the criminal action, to try to explain now, be careful, because what you do, I don't forget. I work day and night that you have to pay the mistake that you make. Because, okay, I agree also what we said, the human right, we are the freedom, liberty of the expression, all is right in our constitution, in our declaration, but this is a paper now. We don't have any possibility to realize the rights. I spoke all the time about rights. I spend many hours. What I give to my people, what I give to the person they are in my association. Okay, wait, I try to find something. Okay, on va donner de l'espoir. There is some, comment on dit? Hope. Hope. I am not, je ne suis pas un curé.
I'm not a priest.
I am a lawyer. I want to try to explain that it's necessary that we do now to the peace. What peace? What kind of peace? The peace is not war. The peace is not the situation that is possible that we are the next month. I don't know what they do in the United States. And what situation in France, in Italy, in February, in March, if we leave a third lockdown, because they are completely crazy. And is this possible? Then I wait. Okay, we talk about the right, we make an international congress, but what we do now? I put a criminal action about the mask. 3,000 people, French people, come with the prosecutor. Okay, I put the vaccine, criminal action. We are the only one in Europe. It's possible that we are the only one in Europe. You talk about the people, or people say, the mask is dangerous, the oxygen, or people make many lessons, medical lesson, all the day. I heard all the day the lesson, law, right, medical, but what they doing? It's necessary that we do something, but not only to speak. The action is necessary. The action for the peace. Because we don't do anything, we don't have a peace. Because the people it's in a terrible situation. You know, because you are a doctor, you are specialized in public health. You know the situation for the French, Italian, American, Canadian people. Afraid. When you speak about Canada for the law, the rights, and he spoke the money. Well, how many thousand dollar for the mask?
Fine between $1,000 and $6,000 if you don't wear the mask, and the police gives you a ticket.
It's not democracy. In democracy, You have a person that the political, they choose something for me. It's not necessary that they became criminal to do something. If we do something, this is democracy, the deputy choose something for my life and not became criminal. This is not the relation that we have to have between a citizen and the political. This is the war. Because at the moment, how many people said, I am happy for my government. I am happy for the choose they do. Nothing. The minority. This is the situation that we are. It's necessary now that we change this way of living. Now, to the people understand it's impossible. You want to change. You have, it's a time that you make a revolution. Possible non-military revolution, but brings revolution. Because if you want to do something, if you want to make some good trial, alone we don't win. But if we came to the tribunal, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, 50,000, it's possible the judge say, okay, it's impossible now that I don't do anything. Because so many people is here. This situation is not possible that I'm a judge and they say, stop, is not, your action is not available. I'm sorry if I said it this way, but it's not the war what I say. For me, it's a try to find that you have a right to live with peace. Not peace and love, because we are love here, but we don't have a peace. We try to find a peace for the people, for the next month, the next year. But in this situation, it's not peace. We became esclavages of the power. And when you are esclavages of the power, it's not peace.
Thank you very
Carlo,
much.
if I can add, I'm sorry to interrupt. If I can add, you know, when cases do get to court, because the governments are not pulling back measures, you know, and in the United States, there's certain jurisdictions, certain states have canceled the COVID measures, Florida, South Dakota. You know, the US Supreme Court just recently ruled in 2 cases, you can't shut the churches and the synagogues and the mosques while your liquor stores are open. There's no rationality to that kind of thinking. In other jurisdictions, they've also, in Portugal, we've had the case over the quarantine with the PCR test. But you're quite right in what you're saying. And in my view, we, as Martin said, the affluent are insulated for the biggest impacts of the COVID measures. Part of the affluent, in my mind, are the professionals who are on a salary, and they're afraid for their jobs. That's how the government is coming down on the doctors, the teachers, the policemen, the nurses, by threatening them, because they have now rules, they've mandated rules that if you say anything critical about the COVID measures, they will try to take your license or fire you. And so that's where I'm targeting my efforts in court, but I'm also targeting my efforts with my friends and colleagues in trying to convince them this is not right, that a job is not worth being enslaved for the next 2 or 3 generations, right? And often I will shame my friends, if need be, to say, how can you be silently complicit with this kind of agenda? Because a lot of them I know do not agree with it, but they're afraid of losing that paycheck directly deposited into their bank account from the government. And this is a big problem. This is where historically the complicity comes in. And often it's not from bad people. They're not bad people. They're just afraid for what's going to happen if I get fired. So for instance, I've been reported to my law society now 4 times. People are saying, you should take Mr. Galati's license away. He's saying these crazy things. You know, fortunately for me, I don't depend on the government for a paycheck. So I can tell them, you know, as I like to say, go pound sand on a wet beach, right? But a lot of people don't have that luxury. So we have to nurture, and we both have to legally go after these regulatory bodies, which we're doing with the medical colleges and the, you know, but we also have to, on a personal level, talk to those people who are our colleagues. Let's face it, you know, I come from a working class family. but my associates now, I've been practicing law for 32 years, are all professionals. I rarely have close friendships now with blue-collar workers unless they're my family members. My brothers and sisters are still blue-collar workers. But we need to talk to our colleagues. Doctors and lawyers have to stand up more. You know, there are those who have stood up, but they're very few. We're very few. And we got to talk to our own friends in rank and file.
Thank you.
Just to pick up on what you said, Rocco, one of the attendees brought to my attention that I think Rainer Fulmich's group is planning on filing a lawsuit in Germany concerning the PCR test. And also has already announced that some documents that will be filed in support of that lawsuit will be available on the, I think, ACU 2020 website and the another website that he created. So I think there's a cooperation right now that's being put in place. Today's conference shows that there's a cooperation that is taking place between lawyers, because I'm from Quebec, you're from Toronto, Maître Brusa is from France, and we have also a cooperation between scientists and medical doctors. The three panelists that appeared today demonstrate that. I would have a question from Dr. Kulldorff. You're a public health specialist. How do you see 2021 in terms of actions that could be taken by citizens or other bodies to change the trend into the public health policies that are now in place in various countries and in Canada and various provinces, in terms to try to make things change in the people who decide on public health issues, change their mind on what's going on?
I'm neither a journalist or a political scientist, so I'm not so knowledgeable about all those things. But my guess is that this will only change and it will only end from pressure from the street. And not just being on the street, but sort of regular people being very outspoken against enormous collateral damage that's occurring and that people are seeing in their own lives. So to be outspoken both on the streets and in the media and with friends and family, I think that's how it is going to change. I don't think the change is going to come from the scientific community, and I don't think it's going to come from the political sphere.
So it's going to come from the people. So it's people have to raise their consciousness about the problem and express it in various ways that you just described, right?
Yeah, and I think there's always sort of the tide is turning. I think there's a trend in this direction. There's more discussion now than there was half a year ago. There's more disagreement about the lockdown policies now than there was half a year ago.
Okay, thank you very much for your very straightforward answer.
Thank you.
So maybe Astrid, you can conclude this panel.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you.
Unless there's questions from the public or...
You were so passionate that I had a hard time to read it at the same time. There are very specific questions, so then we will get into the whole scientific debate. So I don't want to get into that. People want hope, so you answered. They want hope and see, what is possible. What can they do? You mentioned that they can walk to the street, but not alone. So maybe you want to. Well, I will ask the same question we did at last panel, and I can look at the questions in between. Is how can we say there is no pandemic, but how can we put an end to the COVID-19 and declare that it's over? It's over legally. We can say it scientifically. It is over. And Mike, Christian, Martin would say it's over. But how can you help us, to make it real, to make it a decision that goes up to the political, or that is a movement? Is there? Can you, the three of you, answer again after this discussion? And I will look if there's some burning question.
Yeah, we'll let my colleagues answer those questions.
Because we had it before, but this is English, a panel, international. It's a night session, and I thought it was a very interesting debate before. Has this evolved? Maybe.
So Rocco, maybe you go first.
Well, you know, Victor Hugo said, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And if the idea that enough is enough has come, all we have to do is stand up and withdraw our consent to be under the fascist boot that we are right now. It's that simple. I know it's overly simple, but the power does not lie in the parliaments or hoping you get the right judge or the right Supreme Court. It lies in everybody saying, enough is enough, it's over. That's where the power lies.
Mr. Brusa?
No, my idea that we are alone in our country. I am alone in France, you are alone in Quebec. And the political, the government, they are very happy because they don't have a army, international lawyer army, medical international. We try to find something. We try to organize. It's very difficult because it's not usually. Normally we are in our office, in our country, some international case, business, but not in this situation. It's for that that we are, on est un peu perdu dans le sens, we don't have a way. It's necessary that we organize a new way. It's most important that the work that you do in Canada, in France, in Quebec, in Germany, in Switzerland, is we make together because the law of every country is a stupid law. But the right, il diritto, l'état de droit, les droits de l'homme, is not French, is not Italian, is not Canadian. It's all over the world. It's for that for me, we are obliged to work together to make a legal army and medical army to fight this mondial government. They try to destroy humanity. Because you say propaganda, I agree. We are now in the process. They want to destroy humanity. They want to destroy a big, powerful humanity because this is a plan that is made for many years, and now we know. But it's necessary that we are not the complotists, but the people that brings and they think about life. We try to find the truth and to try to explain the truth to the people. And the people, you say, stand up. I am stand up. I'm not. I stand up. I stand up. This morning I was a stand up. I am a stand up. And I will hope that many people stand up and they say, stand up, we want freedom and peace, and we want a new way of living.
What I would say, Astrid, just a simple sentence, and to pick up on what Mr. Brusa and Mr. Galati said, I would tell people, take your power back. Just take your own power back and express it, you know? Don't give your power to the government, don't give your power to people who want to impose on you absurd and unjust and unjustified measures. Just realize that you can take your power back, go inside yourself, and then just express it, you know. And when people take their power back, it spreads to other people, and other people see the courage that you have to take your power back, and they might take their power back, and then it becomes universal. So that's the message I would tell the people today: take your power back.
Okay. Well, that's really great. I will give maybe a last word also to the other speakers, unless you want to say, do the other speakers want to say a last word? Christian, Mike, yes,
yeah,
Martin,
like to.
yes, and Rocco. That's nice.
I would like to say that I'm a little bit more pessimistic in terms of the time when this peace will come. So I observed the situation in Germany, for example. There is the narrative of the Querdenker. And the Querdenker narrative means that they are right-wing radical, and that they want to more or less kill people because of their measures and stopping lockdown and so on. So there's a narrative going on. where I think that when this is a criminal case, Rocco Galati, when this is a criminal case we are faced worldwide, then they will kill people. When we stand up, and the narrative is going on in terms of those who stand up are murderous because they don't accept the pandemic. They don't accept that old people have to be protected and so on. So the narrative of the corona liars is that they are killers, and killers will be killed, and killers will be going into prison, and the German government is thinking about bringing those who don't want to go in quarantine to put them in hotels where they are imprisoned and in psychiatry and so on. So there is there's a narrative going on which I think is not that nice, and that when it is a really criminal case going on, then they will kill people.
Right. Well, you know, Christian, I see that. For myself personally, it's very ironic that I'm 62 years old. I've been a proud anarchist all my life to wake up to people saying I'm right wing. And, you know, there have been 2 attempts on my life, because I do only cases against the state in Canada. And so there have been 2 already. But, you know, I lived my life with the motto from my father, who was interned by Mussolini in World War II. And his motto in life was, you can kill me once, but you can't threaten me twice. Mm-hmm. So I hear you, but you know, history teaches us that you cannot, if you're a person of conscience, you don't have to be religious to be a person of conscience, to live and conduct yourself out of fear.
Yeah, I have a contribution. Yeah, so I was inspired by some of the remarks from a couple of the lawyers. In fact, I've bookmarked them and I'm going to share them with people, because it's not my job alone to persuade other people that Astrid's question, that the threat, the water has receded, and that you don't need to believe all the fear that you're being told. And I think what I tell people is, don't be afraid to look at the information. At the moment, it's so difficult. Sometimes I'll start a conversation, or maybe because of the media being shut down, my new home is Twitter, something I'd never used before. So I can start a conversation, and I have to put up with a lot of abuse. You know, Mike's lost his mind. I knew him when he was younger. It's clearly a psychiatric case, that kind of stuff. It's really painful. You just have to be very cool and just tell people, don't be frightened to look at the data. I wouldn't be up here exposing myself to ridicule and pain if it wasn't that I thought you're being misled. That's the only possible motive. I've had no political activity, no public activity in my entire life. I'm 60. This is the only time I've ever stood up and just said, this is wrong. And I've been doing it continuously for more than 6 months. And I receive a lot of criticism. But, you know, I think those who follow me realize I'm doing it because I sincerely believe in my heart that you're being misled, people are being damaged. And I say to them, you take your courage, just look at the data. Because I think, here's one thing I realized the other day. There's a lot of people who believe what the government is telling them. A few people like me have thought, that's not right. And I've drilled my way through the data. And I've gathered colleagues, very good colleagues. They all have that same thing in common, Mr. Galati, that you said. They have that it's not religion. They just have that belief that this is not right. And you'd find them gathering in the same spot. So that's great. I get a lot of strength from those people. But here's the thing I realized, I think it's useful for everyone to know this. No one ever goes from a skeptic, you know, to being convinced by the propaganda. No one ever goes in that direction. Every person, like a whatever, one of those counting machines, where every time a person moves from the government side and believing in the propaganda to on the other side, it's one more. They never go the other way. So just whether it's one at a time or 1,000 at a time, 1 million at a time, we need to get to the point where enough people just stand up and say, you know, this is BS, just stop now. You know, you can't do it on your own, but you have to gather support. And I think I say to people, don't be frightened to look at the data. So we've been fooled, we've all been fooled. Have another look. What harm is it going to do? Have a look. And that's when we'll get to the point of realizing it's just an ordinary virus by now, whatever was happening at the peak. Now it's kind of, as you said, Mr. Galati, you said just the number of people suffering and dying. It's not unusual compared with other causes of respiratory death. So we shouldn't be frightened of it in any particular way. That's what I would do.
I'd like to thank everybody who has been listening to this, both Zoom and in person in Stockholm, as well as later on. I think I'm very optimistic. It's a slow process, but I am optimistic because for a few reasons. If you go back to March, April, I tried to publish my thoughts about this pandemic in the United States. And even though I have been working on infectious disease outbreaks for a couple of decades, and I work at a reasonably respectable university, I was unable to do so in the US. I was able to publish in my native Sweden, in the major daily newspapers there, but not in the US. And so I thought, am I alone to think this? Well, most of my infectious disease colleagues agree with me. So talking personally, so yes, I was not alone, but there was very little in the media about it. And now it's more and more. And I think it's right that if somebody has believed this, it's hard to get them to realize that they were fooled. But there are a lot of people who never really chose, who never believed it, or they were skeptical about it, but they didn't talk about it because they were the only one, or when they did, their friend was sort of cracking down on them. So in the last several months, when I have published now, and now I'm able to do so after the Great Barrington Declaration, I often receive people thanking me and saying, I have been thinking all of this since March, but whenever I spoke up, I was ridiculed. So thank you for saying something. So I think there are a lot of people who either have always thought that we do, or they were on the fence, and they will come over to our side little by little. And Mike is correct that the direction of how people are moving is pretty one-sided. Mm-hmm. So I think it's reason to be optimistic, but these things takes time. It's a slow process. But the other reason for optimism, I think, is that all the data on the collateral damage is going to come out. Mm-hmm. We will know exactly how many suicides there were in 2020 in different countries. We know how many cardiovascular disease there are going to be, and so on, and the cancers and so on. So all the public health data that has been so much focused on COVID-19 during 2020, we will eventually get the data, the statistics for the other diseases and the collateral damage. And there's no doubt in my mind that a few years down the year, it will be well established that this was the biggest public health fiasco ever. So thank you, all of you, for speaking out and for having done so in the past and for continuing to do so. That's what really matters. So again, thank you so much, and thanks for organizing this meeting.
I think they want to put some slides on the screen.
Yeah.
About
you explain what
Mr. Fulmish created a platform.
Okay.
For
a platform with the information about what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think a platform also for people to provide information, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, meanwhile, there was one question I can ask to Mike. There's a lot of questions, I don't know why. If what are the legal cases in UK? There's at least 3 questions about that.
I don't think I know. I'm a scientist. I genuinely don't know. So unless I don't know is the answer on the legal.
Okay. So while they're putting that up, actually, you said there are not many cases in the world. Is it mainly Northern America and Europe who has problems legally? I mean, because sometimes you wonder if we're not in a bubble of the biggest freedoms attacked
Well, I know for sure because I've downloaded a list of all the U.S. cases on COVID-19 questions. There's been a lot of cases in the U.S. Right now, there's a lot of action in California. Two cases I'm aware of. One case they wanted to close the outside dining area in California. And I have to look at what the case is, well, where the case is, but I know that the first decision that was rendered by the judge was to ask the state of California, the county of LA, to provide the scientific basis and the analysis of the risk that they did for just to justify that measure. So what I see in the trend in the case law right now in the U.S. at least is the judges are asking the government to justify the measure on scientific and a risk-benefit analysis, and also they're asking the government to look to provide them the analysis they did on the collateral damage that would be done by the measure. And 2 days ago, there was a decision in San Diego where the judge decided to quash the measure and that was closing the restaurants and the adult club, and to allow the adult club and the restaurants to reopen again because there was no rational nexus between the ICU bed places available and the potential increase in the ICU bed in hospital caused by people going to restaurants and adult clubs. So judges are trying to look at the scientific side and the collateral damage side of things, and that's what gives me hope that maybe a trend is going to be established in the courtrooms by decisions. But I know that in Canada there's been a case where the Hudson Bay Company, which is a department store, is contesting the closure of businesses and stores based on the arbitrary distinction essential and non-essential, and the case was argued, and there's going to be a decision in a few days because it was taken under advisement. I know in Canada at least, and in the United States, there's a lot of action. There's Me Brusa with his criminal complaint on the vaccine, and there's
in Europe you don't have so much. We have the case, but you don't have any good judgment. In Italy, you have many cases. You have only one judgment about the hydroxychloroquine that now is said the administrative tribunal said it is a good way for the coronavirus. And you have many criminal action about the PCR in Sicilia for the Codacons, is an association of the consumer. You have many cases about different situations, but you don't have any judgment because in Italy the Prime Minister changed the rule every 20 days. This is not possible that you make a trial because it's necessary to have, you wait to 20 days to make the trial against the Prime Minister rule. It's for that they change all the time. It is impossible that you put this case on the tribunal. In France, we don't have any good solution. Only one, then they change a number of people in the church that it's possible to go in 50 and not for only 30. But you don't have any real good solution for administrative, nothing. Judiciary, nothing. We win some case about, comment on dit, contravention, une contravention.
Tickets.
Fine.
Fines.
Voilà, fines 130 euro for the mask. We win so much because we make. In Italy, we have one judgment. A little judge, the name is a peace judge. They said that the contravention of the mask was not good because the lockdown it's totally illegal because the urgently law is not right in the constitution, and when they make urgently law, it's not constitutional. But we wait now the decision of the Constitutional Court. You have only one decision in Portugal about the problem that we talked about this morning, this afternoon. The decision about the people that was stopping in lockdown for 10 days, but they say the PCR is not real good, and after obliged to have a doctor. In Spain, no decision. No decision, because they change all the time. When they're really in very critical situation, they open the bar, they open the restaurant, they stop it's all the time in this way. It's very, very incredible, very quickly. And in UK, no. All people is real afraid. Boris Johnson is a very dangerous man, and the lawyer, the barrister that I told in UK, they are very afraid. They don't do anything because all people is really afraid than what we do after in our professional work. They wait. They don't do anything against the choice of Boris Johnson. This is a terrible situation. Is the relation that we have. Flemming is a very good lawyer, but he's not criminal, he's a civil lawyer, and they make a good, I know because I had a translation, I don't speak German, but he make a good job for the PCR. They do something in Holland. Holland said no, and now they try to do another, but they open a special cell to have more information about the COVID, and we talked last week about the possibilities to work together. And it's for that they make also immediately the criminal vaccine action that the other country of Europe use what they do, and they try to make better. It's possible, but what's most important that we do immediately. And I make a notification Monday. I make a notification. All deputy, all senator receive our criminal action. All ministers receive our criminal action, and we make a special responsibility act for every doctor. We write the information about medical product, a vaccine. We make all obligation for the doctor, and we say, if you are sure that it's not dangerous for us to use the vaccine, you write that you engage your personal, civil, and criminal responsibility. And you sign this paper for me. If you don't sign, I don't get the vaccine. I try with all kind of way to comment dire, renverser, the charge.
Change the,
voilà,
turn the tide.
Voilà, and to put the senator, deputy minister, etc. We do with the mask. We win some situation. This, I said, for that is a practical law, practical right. When the French rule said obligation to use the mask for the children 6 years, 10 years and after. I make a criminal act, and many people use the criminal act that they do to make a notification to the director of the school. And many directors said, okay, it's dangerous. And they try to find a solution. And many children now go to the school without mask. Normally it was impossible. And they said, okay, you go to the school without mask, you have some medical certificate, you don't use the mask. For us, I win something, because if I don't do anything, nobody go to the school without. When I win one case, okay, two, and etc. This is my way to find some solution for the people that are in association or without or out, but this is le droit au quotidien, the right to every day for every people, and try to answer and to help every person.
Can I quickly add something? Can I quickly add something? In answer to your question, you would think that this being a global phenomenon and problem, there would be a lot more lawsuits. As many lawsuits there have been in the United States, it's just about a dozen. One of the reasons that most people should know, and in the developing countries, you know, very few. For instance, in Canada, if you want to take a case up to the Supreme Court, the legal cost of the average case from the ground to the Supreme Court is $2.5 to $3 million. Okay, so the cases that we're bringing, not just here, but in America, and I'm sure Carlo, rely on the goodwill of lawyers of conscience and on fundraising from the public, because no one individual, unless you're filthy rich, could afford to hire a lawyer to actually take on the COVID measures as a constitutional issue. And the governments know that. And so that's why you're not seeing more cases. And in the developing world, legal fees are not cheap. Legal fees are very expensive as well. So there's no way somebody in the developing world who's badly affected by this is going to hire a lawyer. They can't. And so when you see, so in Canada, the cases that are being mounted are by lawyers like me. I run a constitutional center, and people who can say, okay, I'm not going to, you know, we're not going to get paid on this. We're lucky if we cover our expenses, but this needs to be done. There's another constitutional center in Alberta who's starting to take cases. And then there's Dominic, who's supported by a foundation that's fundraising for the case. So this is why, if people are asking, where are all the lawyers? Well, the lawyers who can't afford to do it for free are at home. They're not doing it.
Yes, but it's necessary that we change our way of working, because the political is very created many, and we are obliged to change. For instance, you have the possibilities in Europe to make a process with Article 263 of the trade European law, but you make this. You wait many months. You do that, the agency go very quickly. I notify next week the criminal complaint to every member, and I want to become this case a political case, not only juridical. Because if they said, you are a director of the European agency. You say me that the vaccine is not dangerous. Okay. Also, you write this, and you write for all people in Europe that you engage your personal responsibility, criminal responsibility. You don't sign this. I explain to the French people, for all people, because it's not French, it's European. I say, I put in the journal, I make a press communication. I said, I send to the director this kind of paper. He doesn't sign this paper. He said that he wants to not engage in responsibility, and you change completely the situation. We are obliged to use the army that they use, and you make this, I make this. It's for that. It's not only I go to the tribunal, I try to win a case, because you make to the tribunal, you wait many years, and we are the COVID old people, also me. Oh, ciao. We wait. We are obliged to change and to work juridical and political, and to use the people, because in this moment in Europe we have 60% of people is no vaccine. We are in good situation, because when you have 60% of people in France or in Italy, there are no vaccine. We have the possibilities to use the people this time for us, because for the mask, the situation was very crazy. We said, no good, the mask is very dangerous. All people put, you go around in France, you go around the street, all people have the mask, use the masks. All. When they go alone, the people come, yes, what? Oh, calm. I am a normal person. No, they're afraid. This is the situation. For the mask, the situation is different, because the people use this mask, and the power say all the time, use this mask all the day, morning, afternoon, night, all the time. For the vaccine, the situation is different. It's for that we are to use this situation for us. It's juridical but political. It's for that our position is not only to be liar, is also to be a political liar, because if we want to win something, we have to change the fight and the spirit of the people to explain. I finish. One person write to me yesterday. He read my complaint. It's on the website Questions-Réponses. Was why in my association I just write very simple mail. He said, I was not sure to use the vaccine, but when I read your act, I don't use the vaccine. Victory. This is victory. To convince the people with the act that is not good, because I try to explain in 40 pages the consequence, the effect of the vaccine, the dangerous ARN messenger, and comment on dit, ARN genetical vaccine. Therapy, genetic therapy. It's for that the people understand the difference between vaccine and genetic therapy. Our work, your act, your complaint, what you do is most important. It became a paper to give information. My plant is not for the prosecutor, it's also for the French people. They have the possibility to understand. If I write this is a criminal, and nobody saying that I write is stupid, because my plant of the mask is 40 days now. She is on the prosecutor. And when I write something that is wrong, immediately, Liberation, the fake news, check news, nobody say nothing, because I try to make a syllogism perfect. Okay? You want to contest me? Contest me. Okay, but you don't have any possibilities, because I try to be in a real orthodoxy juridical way. I'm sorry, I was a little bit longer.
Oh, c'est très bien.
It's good.
Just for the slides, there's a technical problem, but there's going to be a note at the end of the conference that's going to be put for the websites where people can get information from COVID-19 in Germany, the ACU 2020, I think, and where also people can and lawyers can put all the lawsuits that are taken and the judgments that are rendered everywhere in the world on COVID-19 issues, and also where name of experts are going to be mentioned for lawyers to know whose experts are made available.
Yeah, I think it's important that you write success stories to give hope to people. And each success story, like the Portuguese one, the Italian,
Absolutely.
it's very important. I can just tell you, in Switzerland, we have the referendum system. So we managed to get 50,000 signatures to banish the COVID law, you know, the emergency law that was systematically implemented everywhere in the world. So this is the first victory. The second is that they also started to do terrorist law. You know, that, I mean, I would be arrested in Switzerland, because, you know, they did everything for dissidents to prepare the next step. And this also has almost a majority.
Very dangerous. I know the terrible.
But it's everywhere in the world, and that's where we have to map.
To put in arrestation for 50 days, administration decided to stop, not in jail, but 50 days.
Arbitrary.
Arbitrary, totally.
Yeah, and I think that also it's an interesting study to do the mapping of the systematic way that law has been changed, politicians have been strained, or, I mean, blackmailed, or because I see a systematic algorithm everywhere. So this is what I can see in Switzerland. Is the referendum is good. The law of terrorism that they want to implement is going to be off. It's a few signatures. Also, the Swiss medic, the agencies of medication have also been locked by contracts with Bill Gates, etc. In Switzerland, Swiss medic, which is the FDA of Switzerland, had a signature with WHO, tripartite WHO, Bill Gates, and Swiss medic last year. This is illegal. WHO has no right to make a contract with a country. It is member states. It has no authority to. So we see strange things going on, and this is in Switzerland, just a small country where we can see that Swiss medic has opposed the vaccine. It's a small office. For the first time, they went against the federal law. So I have a little hope. It's a small country, but I just wanted to share what I know about Switzerland. I also know that, you know, Switzerland always moves a bit slower than others. Einstein always said, I want to die in Switzerland because everything happens 20 years after. So, but this time, so the lawyers are coming together slowly, and I know some groups in Swiss Germany, and slowly they are moving, you know, for the mask, for small actions. So that's what I can share. Yeah.
Switzerland moves slowly because you're dragging all that money behind you. It's a lot of bags.
Actually, yeah, I can give you a scoop. Agora TV published a video. No, but we have an activist who is a specialist in fraud, votation fraud, who made TV interview with NTD in the US, because there's a huge scandal in Switzerland is involved in the USA fraud on votation. And it has been looked, and you know, so you see Switzerland is cosmetically perfect. But in fact, we are discovering little by little that there are holes in the cheese, and the cheese of Switzerland, and much more than we thought. And we are all very surprised that the post office is involved in the fraud of the votes, and the UBS is more than Chinese than Swiss. And you know, the world has changed suddenly, and the veil is coming up. So I'm just giving you a little bit of hope also that our small country is moving, and your role is extremely important. We are just scientists, and you know, like those who spoke, and we're trying to move it. So you're giving us all a lot of hope, and I'm sure that people are listening too. So I'm sure that you will work together, and then we can also help you to be successful. Where science meets the law, law meets science for peace. So I think that could be maybe the last word. We're very happy to have had this day and this session. Thank you to all of you who stayed so long in the evening. And I'm sure this is going to be restreamed so people can understand better what's going on. And like you said, fear is one of the first factors. I hope that we stopped and they solved fear. You know, there's a very famous sentence from a president of US, is it Eisenhower, who said, there's nothing to fear more than fear itself. It's Eisenhower? Yeah, nothing more to fear.
That was Winston Churchill.
Oh,
that was Churchill.
You sure? Oh, okay. Maybe there's a dispute
sure,
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure it was Winston
Okay.
Churchill.
Okay, it's a great sentence. So, yeah.
He also said something very apropos, that if you're trying to get from A to Z, you will never get there if you listen to all the barking dogs along the way.
Okay, that's a very good one. Okay, so let's go to A to Z and win this all together.
Right.
And as the last word, oh, tu veux dire quelque chose après moi? Attends. So the last thing is also that get your power back, but please get your health back, because power is in your health. Health is development. Health is mental health. Health is your power. And don't believe this. Your health and immune system is extremely strong. The biocycle social model is strong. And I hope we will have much more on immunity and on health, yeah, in the future. So Francois, with who I organized this day, he was the inspiration. He came one day to see me and he said, we have to do something before the end of the year, organize an event, because it will be too late if we don't do something. So I hope that we did something. I'll give you the word.
Okay.
Thank
Excuse
you.
my English.
Brittany.
We don't think it was possible, and it is. We don't do this meeting only to speak, but to propose a manifesto to sign, because we have all today a lot of beautiful speakers from experts to build some proof that emergency law are not acceptable now. I don't know how you can to use it, but we have to build it. And the second thing, we wanted to ask people to begin subject and not object, because their force, their strength is inside. And they put the mask, but they disagree. They hear emergency law, they say yes, but inside they say no. And if we can speak a lot of time about what we think with our heart, they believe petit à petit,
Poco a poco.
poco a poco, and they win.
Little by little.
So excuse my language, but it's not only to speak. I think we can win with all was inside each of us.
Thank you. Okay, so happy Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Ciao
Very
Rocco.
much.
Very much.
Buon Natale.
Rocco.
Buon Natale Rocco Galati.
Thank
A
you to
te,
everybody.
Ciao ciao a tutti. Ciao.
Bravo. Wow. C'est la fête. Bravo à tous. Bravo.